Hello, everyone. You're welcome to my series, Python for All. This is Messed Up Mentors, and today I will be continuing with the next video in the series. And precisely, I'll be looking at reading and writing files, which is specifically input and output operations. In this series, we will look at the fundamentals of reading and writing files in Python. We'll focus on working with data, creating applications, and automating tasks. If you have very large files, how can you use Python to make your work much easier for you by simply automating these tasks? So we will cover various headings such as file types, opening modes, reading and writing techniques, and we'll also look at the best practices. Let's start with file types. We have text files, and these text files are used specifically for storing plain text. Examples are the .txt, .csv, .xls, etc. Next, we have binary files, and binary files are for storing non-textual data such as images, videos, or compressed files. Examples are .jpg, .jpeg, .zip, .png, .tif. The next is Python object files. Python object files simply store serialized Python objects and arrays in format, for example, such as pkl, the pickle file, .mpy, the numpy, array file, .mpz, the numpy compressed array files. Next, let's talk about the opening modes. First, we have R, which means open for reading. That's always the default in Python. We have the W, which refers to open for writing, and this usually truncate existing content. We have the A, small letter A, which is open for appending, and what that does that it writes at the end of that file, the content of that file. That's what I mean to say. We have the X, which open for exclusive creation, but this raises an error if the file exists. We have the R plus, which is open for reading and writing, but it must start at the beginning of that file. We have the W plus, which is open for reading and writing, and here the file pointer is actually positioned at the beginning of the file. And then lastly, we have the A plus, which is for appending and reading. I will show you examples of all of these modes, either for reading and writing, very shortly. And I would also help demonstrate the usefulness of each of them, and then you know where you can apply them when you are reading or writing files in Python. The next is reading files. We have three different functions, okay, built-in functions that we call in Python when we want to read files. The first is the read, okay. The open and the close bracket after the word read simply refers to our calling that function, okay, in Python. So what this simply do is to read the entire file as a string. Then you can query the string to get the contents of each of those strings, which translate to the content of the file you have read. The next is read line. Here you read a line at a time. And the last is read lines. Here this function simply reads all the lines into a list. Remember, the first one reads as a string, but this one reads all the lines into a list. Then you can query the list, to get every element of that list. First, the read line is actually memory intensive because depending on the size of the data, it loads all the content, okay, onto the memory of your system. The read line is less intensive because it reads a line at a time. Now, we have the following syntax when we want to read files in Python. The first one is with open. Here we're using Context manager. I think I've also detailed that in one of my videos. I will leave the link in this video so that you can go back if you've not seen that to go through it and understand fully how context managers work. Here we have with open files, and then you pass in the full path and the mode, and then you open it as F. You can use any letter, F, FH. You're simply opening that file as a file object. So the F there is a file object. And next, we have lines equals f.read. So we are reading all the lines. You can use words, you can use any variable, okay, to store the content of that file. For read line, it follows a similar context, but just that you call the function f.readline. And likewise, for read lines, you call f.read lines. Next, let's talk about writing files. We call two functions to write files. We have the first one, we write, okay, which, and then you pass in the data you want to write, and this simply writes that data or that text or that information to the file. And the next is write lines, and here we simply write an iterable of strings to the file. And the syntax is also as simple and shown here. With open, open a file, and then you pass the mode. We always open a file, and then we specify the mode of the file, either reading or writing. And then the output becomes f dot, and then you call the write function to write to that file. We can append to an existing file by simply opening the file in append mode, and then we do the same thing, write to the file. Now, use writes for simply storing data, or write lines for iterating over lines of text. I'm going to show you examples of this very shortly. What are the best practices? The best practices are use the context manager with open, the file name, and the mode as file. And this door helps for automatic file closing. You'll see in other codes, they simply just say open, okay, passing the file mode and F, and I say, for example, F equals open. In that case, you will need to manually close every of such files that you have opened. But with context manager, you don't need to do that. You can, so it makes your code more Pythonic, and also cleans up your code and help you to write and more readable, codes in Python. So the next also is that you can handle error gracefully using the try and except block. If you don't know more about try and except block, I think I will also leave a link of my video on that there error handling in Python, and you can see how we can handle error gracefully in Python using try and except block, and you can master that act. A lot of what I'll be discussing in my video here, when it comes up, I've done them in previous videos. I will just simply leave the link so that you go there and get the details of it, rather than just re-explaining that here and then making this video too long. So the next, now I want to go straight into examples. So first I will import time, because I want to time the execution of my code in each of these cells, and move to the next cell. I will call the cell magic time, percentage time, simply okay times that code in that cell, and then print it out. So here I would show you my data where I have this blood pressure 2.csv, and I'm simply reading it. So I say with open, I pass in the full pipette, and I'm reading mode. Okay, now I want to read just a line and then print out the line. First, I'll show you my file. This is my file content. I have it in messed up mentors data, and this is the blood pressure 2. Let's see the content of blood pressure 2. The blood pressure 2 I open. I'm using a Linux system, so I have LibreOffice, not Word. If I open the content, you can see here heading is patient, sex, age group, blood pressure before, blood pressure after, and then I have various entries running down until the 120th entry. Okay, so we know that the first line is the heading of that file. Okay, I'll close this file again, and let's go back here. So we open this print line. What do we have? If we print line, you see it tells us the CPU execution time, 3 microseconds. But my focus here is that it prints. You can see we have read the first line. the first line. Now, the next example here, so I'm still timing this code execution. Here, I want to open the same blood pressure 2 and want to read and write to that file. Remember, R plus will go back up. What do we say about R plus? For open for reading and writing. Okay. And what you're writing must start at the beginning. In other words, it goes to a new line and starts on that new line. So let's go back here. And also remember, let's go back there. Blood pressure 2 has how many entries? 120 on the 120th value entry. Okay. And it's female black. So I want to store another value on the 121st position. So I'll simply come here, say open, okay, blood pressure 2 the CSA R plus as F, and I say content is F dot read. So I read the whole content, and I already have the file object now, okay, holding the content as string, and I'll say F dot write, and I'll write in the data I want. So I want to pass in the 121 row, which is item male 70 plus 190 170. Okay, and then let's see the content. So if I run this, it prints the content. Now I've printed this content, but notice that what I'm printing is what is the content that I read. And the content shows that I have 120 items here, right? But I've written to that file, which is not printed here. So I'll go back here and show you the content of that file so that you can see it. It's actually there. If I want to show the 121, I have to read the file again and then print the content. I think let me make that clear here. So let's go down. You can see that on the 121 item now is male, which is the data that I wrote. So I read and wrote to it. So you can see it more like appends the R plus simply does what reads the file, and when you're writing to it again, it does not overwrite the data there, but it simply appends starting from a new line. That's what the R plus does. Okay, that's what the R plus does. So here again, I want to show examples of read lines. So I'll open the blood pressure CSV.2. Remember, I've stored the data to it. So it's no longer 120. Let's also see it here. So I read all the lines and I'll print this. What will I have? It reads all the data. Now, remember, line after line. Every line is an item in this list. So this, what you the forward slash n here is telling you that ends that particular line. So you have a new line. You go again, the next item, the first entry, a new line, mail. And let's go down. How many entries we have now? We have 121. So initially it was 120. I wrote to it using R plus. In other words, I opened and appended to it, okay, by writing to it to make it 121. Now again, let's demonstrate something here. And what I want to demonstrate here is this. I want to open this file again, but this time around I want to use A plus. In other words, I want to append to it. You can either use A or A plus. Let's use A first. Let's see what. So I have A. In this case, I want to write. Now I have 121. Let me write 122. Female 70 plus. Let's say 72 plus. No. Let's say 80 plus 180. Now let's write that too. And remember here, I passed in here intentionally new line. The idea is that after writing this content, it creates a new line. So if you want to append this, you create a new line. So if I run this, I'm still using the blood pressure 2. Let's go back to content of blood pressure 2 and let's see what we have there. I open blood pressure 2 and what's the content? Let's go down. You see what we have. Now, notice what is happening here. Instead of writing this 122 to a new line, what happens when you use the A or A plus? It simply appends that. So the pointer is on the last entry. So it appends that to the end of the last entry. But you notice in the case of R plus simply wrote to a new line. So I hope you can see the difference. So if you want to use R plus and A or A plus, you should know when to use them. So if you want to have it on a new line, use R plus to reopen and write to the file. But if you just want to append continuously to that file, just keep appending without writing it to a new line, use A or A plus. That's actually the picture I want to paint here. I want you to see that broader difference of using so that you know when and when to use each of these modes, specifically when you are reading and writing at the same time, so that you don't overwrite the content of your file. Okay, next I want to talk about also demonstrate reading and writing here, but in this case I want to use another file. I want to use a textual file, so I'm using this file here, Things Fall Apart. The Things Fall Apart is actually a novel written by late Chinua Achebe, and I've extracted it as .txt. So let's open the file. Let's see. So this is the content of the file, which has so many chapters. So let's see what we want to do here. I also want to read this file and do some file operations, try to manipulate and then write out the outputs. So here I'm doing with open, as usual, using the context manager with open. I'm putting the full file path and then I'm reading. If you omit this R, the default mode is reading mode. But if you want to write, you must specify the mode. Okay, whether write or append, you have to specify the mode. So I'm reading this as F, that's a file object, and now I want to pick all the words in that text. Things fall apart. So I'll call word equals f dot read. Now, for me to write, I open another context manager, right inside that context manager with open again. Then this time around I want to write out all the chapters. Just pick the chapters and Things Fall Apart. So I have data and of course, with this, if that file is not existing, okay, it creates that file because I'm opening for writing. For reading, you already have an existing file. For writing, you open when you put in the full file path and the file name, it opens that. And that's why also I did mention in this reading and writing mode here that when you can use, I'm just going to go up to explain something here. Yes, you can use this exclusive open. But what happens is if that file, for example, you have an existing file that you want to write to, it will throw up an error. But if you don't have an existing file, okay, you can actually use the mode X. It's very rare. I usually don't see people use that, but you can use it. That's what I'm saying. After this video, you can try it yourself. Just ask your own personal homework just to try that. Get the same file, get any file, and then try to read it and then write to it using that exclusive mode X. So here I have with was, and then because the words are all read as a single string, all I will need to iterate through the string. So I'll say for word in words dot split. So I'll split every content of that string into simple unit of words, and then I will do something here. Try to query those if I have a chapter in word.lower. Why did I call word.lower? Because the chapters are reading with capital letters, other words are small letters. So if I want to kind of find this, I simply convert all the words that I'm looking through and make them lowercase. Okay, so if you find the word chapter in it, be written to my file, but when writing it, it should be written in the uppercase. Okay, and then remember, I also created a new line. So each time it writes to a new line. Let's run this and see what we have. And then let's check the content of our file. Now I have chapters created. It wasn't there before. Open it. Can you see I have chapter, chapter, chapter all through. I don't know which chapter is which. I just have chapter until all chapter. So which one is chapter one? How many chapters do I have? Let's improve this writing operation. Okay, let's go back and improve it. So that takes me to the last example here. Again, I reopen the same Things Fall Apart, but instead of using f.read, I simply use f.readlines. So what this does is that it lumps all of these words into a list. Okay, into a list. Okay, the list, every element of that list are simply words from the Things Fall Apart novel. So this time I opened chapters on it underscore version 2.txt, and I want to write to it. I open them as file object, and I say for words in words. The words are the words is simply a list of words. So I look at every word in that list. If I have chapter in the word lower in that list, and if the length of word is less than or equal to 20, actually this number here you can choose. Actually, I've looked through and found out that all of the chapters put together, the words are either 20 or less. So if the total word is less than or equal to 20, write that to the file that I've opened, which is chapters underscore v2.txt. What happens if we run this code? We have our file created. We go back there, we have chapters underscore 2 version 2.txt. And if you open, you see we have written every chapter in Things Fall Apart to this file. So we have chapter 1 until chapter 25. And so with this, we know that we have 25 chapters in Things Fall Apart novel. So with this, we have come to the end of this video. If you have any question, please leave it in the comment section. I will also leave a link to all the videos I've mentioned earlier that you need to refer to get detailed knowledge about what we did mention here while talking about file input and output operation. Like this video, share this video, and if you are watching this video and you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to Messed Up Mentors, and as a way of encouraging me to turn out more valuable content. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you again in my next video. Bye.